just start a franchise and not like support every franchise owner to the absolute best of my absolute ability.
Right, exactly. And the challenge is most aspiring franchisors, and I told you this, I think, it's easy to spend easy. It's not easy, but it's the easy part, truly. The easy part is spending $100,000 and getting your FDD and your operations manual. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
Most franchisors never even get one, let alone 3 or 10 franchisees. It's just not easy to do. And then if you do it and it takes off, there is so many ways to screw up. There's just so many ways to really mess up. I would never discourage it, but I love the franchise concept. At the same time, there are other ways to do it, and you definitely want to do your diligence as you're looking to do it. Like for instance, maybe for a lot of people, it's better for them to just say, I want 30 branches in the next 10 years and just grow corporately.
Right.
True Green's a $2 billion organization, and it's 100, they're not franchise, they're corporate.
Interesting. Yeah. So like that's kind of like where our shift has focused to is like, hey, we're looking at doing like 10 locations like locally. And then from there, maybe
there you go.
That option if we wanted to, or just keep building.
And that's a niche that we found at Scoop Soldiers. Before I speak to that, like we grew corporately way more than most franchisors ever grow corporately. You know, we were in 12 markets, and I don't remember exactly how many, 7 or 8 states corporately at Scoop Soldiers before we ever started franchising. And so we went that route, and what paid off for that route is that's what really teed us up for success in a way that other pet waste businesses don't have the same luxury of. Is we were able to award franchises to people that were already established businesses, and so from day one they're making money, and therefore from day one they're happy. Mm-hmm. And likewise, we were able to sell the assets of that location. So it'd be like selling your branch. If you have 10 branches, you sell 2 of them, or you sell 1 of them to a person, and there's a transaction that's should be profitable for you at that point too.
Yeah.
And so being able to sell those markets off has been a kind of a niche that we've been able to find. Yeah. Whereas we would not have grown nearly to the extent that we have with franchising Scoop Soldiers had we only had like 1 location and we just need to franchise out from that. That would have been a much harder thing.
I think what's really cool too about like the area that we both kind of live in is how much it's developing and growing.
And it's just getting started.
Yeah.
It's getting started real quick because I could talk all day on just that. Why is this horrible excuse for a brand in front of me? Are y'all picking on me? Is it for this? Are we live, by the way? We're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pet Waste Millionaire podcast. And we are live. We've got Will and Marissa. Did I say that right? Larissa. I knew I was getting that wrong.
That's okay.
Will and Larissa at Military Lawn Cuts. Welcome. Welcome.
Absolutely.
And Buc-ee's. I'm not going to get into my rant today. Maybe I will as to why I hate Buc-ee's. Okay, I will. I actually love Buc-ee's. I'm just a little jealous. I don't usually deal with envy, but when Buc-ee's has a brand that people will buy their freaking shirts, it's a gas station, and people go there and proudly wear this gas station brand on their shirts. So one of my missions in life is to have such a cool brand that people pay for a poop scooping shirt, the same way they pay for a dadgum gas station shirt. Anyways, I love Buc-ee, but the other reason I hate is because I love road trips, but at the same time, when I'm on a road trip, I am on a mission to get where I'm going, and Buc-ee's is in my way. It takes too long to get in and out of there. It's too crowded. You got to walk too far to get to the bathroom. I don't understand the concept that everybody else seems to love about Buc-ee's. That's my rant.
It's fun
Brent
to
set me
explain
up.
it to people, like, because we both are from Illinois, and trying to explain what Buc-ee's is to people.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, back in Illinois, you don't see BP or Shell or any other gas station being worn on a shirt, being on the back of a car for a sticker.
Well,
a blanket.
the other business that's like this that I kind of understand it, but I don't. HEB.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. It's a good grocery store. But I don't understand it beyond that. I say that, but it is inspiring. I say it tongue in cheek because on one hand I joke, oh, I hate this. But then on the other hand, as a capitalist and as somebody who loves brands and loves the story, I absolutely love it. I mean, it's incredible to think the amount of emotion and passion you can, get out of people by providing an awesome service or concept. And that's really what Buc-ee's is, or what HEB is they've created raving fans. And you ever heard of that book, by the way?
I have not, no.
Raving Fans. I was recommended to that book actually by Jason Cupp.
Okay.
He's a landscape industry consultant, but he recommended that book. That book changed our company culture, and we make it an annual read. I would say read. It's on YouTube, hour and 20 minutes. You can listen to it.
Yeah.
But we have our team and encourage our team members to listen to that at least once a year, because it really does get to the core of what you want to do to compete in a service-based business.
Yeah.
In serving your clients and creating raving fans. It's the difference, think about it, between Chick-fil-A and Popeyes. I like both of their chicken, but as far as a customer experience standpoint, Popeyes can't compete with Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A invented the concept of raving fans.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
It's a good, quick book, and I make everybody on my team read it in the last 5 years. It's been life-changing.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think
So-
I've heard of it. I just, maybe it was through your podcast, I think.
Might be, because I have talked about it. I
yeah.
talk about that book a lot,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'll definitely look into that. Absolutely.
So you guys have been in business now coming up on 5 years. I heard that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And y'all started together.
Yeah, so we started it together. We kind of brainstormed to be like, what business are we going to start? What are we going to call it? What are we going to name it? What's our logo going to be? That was all together. But as far as him starting it, he did that himself while I was still working at Aldi.
Okay.
And then he did all of 2019 by himself.
Just
Um,
in a truck, hustling,
Not
mowing.
even in a truck. He had his Grand Prix. So I don't know if you guys remember like Yard Dog's story while we were in
Yes.
Kentucky
Yeah.
for the
So you
landscape.
started in a car.
Yeah,
Yep.
so basically my Grand Prix, I was putting the mower in the back seat of the Grand Prix, and the handlebars were sticking out of the window. I still remember.
Residential mower, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Completely residential mower. They were so vaguely remember like gasoline spilling like out in the back seat, and so like on the weekends when I wouldn't be mowing, I would just be like driving around and I'd have to roll the windows down because I would just smell the gasoline that spilled out during the week. But then, yeah, we started, we had a couple local customers that I would eventually like walk to, like literally just within a few blocks.
Yep.
And then that built to get our first truck. And then, yeah, really once we put the logos on the truck, it was.
Now, what were you doing before that?
So I was in the Army for 6 years, down at Fort Bragg. I was a paratrooper, an IT specialist. So jumped out of C-130s.
So wait, you were a paratrooper, but also an IT specialist.
Yes, yeah.
Is that normal? That's not common that you've got both skill sets, or is it?
Not like a lot of the IT people will not have their airborne status when jumping out of planes and stuff. My dad was a paratrooper, so when I signed my initial contract in the Army, I was like, I want to go to jump school.
Got it.
And so I got that in my contract. But the unit that I was at, everybody was basically airborne. From the infantry on the front lines all the way to the support.
Yeah, and I think I've said before, thank you for your service. 6 years. That's 6 years Army.
6 years Army.
I assume you did some time overseas.
I did, yeah. So I deployed to Iraq for 10 months. I was in Baghdad from 2016 to 2017.
Okay.
But then, yeah, after that, was really stationed at Fort Bragg down in North Carolina for the 6 years. So
Are you from this area though? Is that what got you here? Or?
No, so so we're originally just south of Chicago.
Okay.
And we always wanted to get out of Illinois. And when I was in the military, I would talk to everybody, and they would always say hey, they'd come and join the military for 4 years, and they go back to their hometowns, and then they're like, hey, it's the same people doing the same stuff at the same places with the same bad habits. And I'm like, that's not what I want.
Right.
I'm like, so I'm not going to go back to the hometown. And so when I got out, I stayed there temporarily, but then moved down to Dallas. My sister moved to Carrollton. Yeah. And then my mom moved to Frisco, and then we basically followed suit after that.
Okay. Are you from that area as well,
Chicago
Illinois?
area too. So we have always lived about 45 minutes to an hour apart. at
Okay.
different times. We've
Really?
found out that we've been at the same places at the same times, but we never met in Illinois, oddly
That's
enough.
awesome.
So,
Where'd you meet?
So he added me on Facebook, which I always delete people I don't know. But I met his sister 2.5 years
Okay.
prior. So it was like a familiar face, familiar last name. Found out he looked familiar because I've seen him in her wedding pictures. And I was like, oh, I know this person, this person, this person. And I'm like, I don't know you. And that's why
That's
he looked
awesome.
familiar. And I'm like, I don't know what it is.
So mutual friends on Facebook. Interestingly, that's what we told people, my wife and I. I've been married 14 years this month. And
Yeah.
that's what we told people, basically. We basically lied because we were embarrassed. That's what we told people, that we met through a mutual friend on Facebook. That's what we told people for the first couple of years we were married, because we really met on Match.com in 2009. And that was kind of taboo until the last 5, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
So for the first few years, we were both a little self-conscious about how we met. But yeah, we met online ourselves.
That's pretty cool. You guys are like the part of
Yeah.
the pioneer group.
Yeah, in some ways, you're exactly right. Even though that just made me feel kind of old, I'm the pioneer. So when was that? Was that
That
how
was
long?
2018.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so he
So you
added me on Facebook. It was like April 1st, so April Fool's Day, but it was also Easter. So I was
Okay.
like, hey, happy Easter. Sorry, I don't know you, but thank you for your service. Like,
Yeah,
I'm from
that's
a
awesome.
super military involved family. So I was like, thank you for your service. His picture with him in uniform.
So going back to something you talked about when you started military lawn cuts. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. Military lawn cuts. As you started that, you said you were looking at different, you literally were like trying to list out different business ideas. Like you didn't just fall into lawn and landscape. You literally methodically tried to decide what other businesses did you look at? What led you to?
So that's a great question. Like, we obviously like sat down and we're like, okay, what are all the different businesses? I mean, initially, like when I first got out, I was like, oh, like maybe I could start an IT business where I could go to people's houses and, I would hand out business cards and like help them set up their TVs
Yeah.
or computers or stuff like that. But like, that wasn't really something that I was passionate about. When I was younger, I think when I was like maybe 13, 14, my dad actually helped me start a mowing business. And so me and my buddy got together. We were called the Moni Grass Cutters. And
Moni?
Moni was the town.
Moni. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Moni,
Cool.
Moni Grass Cutters. And so we handed out flyers. And my dad let me borrow the mower, and that's kind of how it got started. I think I had maybe like 6 or 7 customers that I would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But I think that planted that entrepreneurial bug of like, hey, the freedom.
The freedom and the money,
control.
period. Exactly. I can totally relate. And the way my dad would routinely, because I think you've heard briefly my story. It wasn't very eloquent, but it was there. But my dad kind of did the same thing. It was like I got excited about going and getting a job at 15 because I was going to make all this money. And I had been mowing yards for years. And my dad was like, EJ, you realize you're going to make like a third of what you can make in a single hour at a job, at a minimum wage job. You can make $25 an hour to mow yards. You can't make that anywhere else anytime soon. You're 13. And it just started to click for me.
Yeah.
And, I had in my mind that I was going to work 20 hours a week because that was the amount you're allowed to work when you're 13, 14, 15 at a grocery store. And he was like, I was like, I'm going to work 20 hours a week and I'm going to make $400 a week. And he was like, go mow 4 yards. How long does that take you? And I was like, oh, yeah. But then I went a step further than what he was picturing. He was just picturing, oh, you'll work 4 hours a week. I was like, I was planning on working 20 hours a week. How much could I work if I got 20 yards and worked 20 hours a week? And he always joked that he created a monster. I was buying trailers and buying equipment
Yeah.
before I had the license to drive it all. But
Yeah. That's huge.
so that plants that seeds. What your father helping you start that. So you knew about mowing from that.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I had owned kind of like a small business, I guess, like growing up and stuff. But yeah, after that, I mean, we kind of talked about it, and she helped her parents in the garden, like pulling weeds growing up, which
To an extent, and then I would see a spider
Mhm.
or worm or
That
something,
sounds-
and I was like, I'm done. I'm
So
going
it wasn't.
inside.
So my wife always tells me that's what her parents did to her for punishment. They were required to weed the garden, and so she won't have anything to do with anything lawn and landscape now because to her that was punishment.
Yeah.
So you did it because you were just helping the family, not for punishment. But until the spiders got there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not a fan of bugs, never have been.
Yeah. That's how my wife is too.
I tell Will all the time, I said, if you would have told me when I was younger that I was going to be in part of a lawn care or landscape
Right.
business, I would have laughed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, and then my dad was a business owner as well. So he owned his own business for 40 years.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He recently got to retire, which was awesome. So I was always already around that and seeing how my mom was very supportive and just being
Yeah.
there for him with that.
What kind of business?
He owned a small amusement park.
Really?
So my childhood was fun.
That's
growing up,
awesome.
Go-karts, batting cages, mini golf.
Yeah.
But he taught me a lot, like at a young age as well, of just, work hard, work before you play, and money doesn't grow on trees, all that good stuff. And then teaching me, I would be able to go up to work with my dad, and I was like 8 years old, and I'd be pressing buttons on the register.
Right.
Of course, not legally being paid, but like paid in ice cream and
Yeah.
a drink. In Chicago, we call it pop, not soda, but
I grew up calling it Coke. Everything, being from here, everything was Coke. Dr. Pepper's Coke, Sprite's Coke, Pepsi is Coke.
yeah.
It's all Coke. So I've determined that even though I always used to laugh at people from the North or the Midwest that they'd call it pop or soda or this or that, I have determined that calling it Coke is actually like the dumbest one of them all. And it actually is. It's actually soda and pop are actually logically far better terms. I'm probably creating some unpopularity amongst fellow Southerners who call everything Coke, but yeah, not everything is Coke. That's just a brand.
Yeah.
It actually is soda or pop.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
never realized it, but I said pop one day, and they're like, "You're from up north,
Yeah,
aren't you?" And I'm
exactly.
like, "What was the giveaway?"
Exactly. Yeah, but the giveaway being Texan. I've only spent 6 months living outside of Texas. I spent 6 months living in Colorado when I was 19. And still working and figuring things out. And everybody up there would laugh because I would use fixin'. I'm fixing this. I'm fixing to do this. I'm fixing to do that.
Yeah.
And they'd always laugh and make fun of. Is everything with Texas broken? That was always the comment. It would drive me nuts.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But no, so y'all's business this year. Tell me about. You mentioned a minute ago. You have expanded out. You were a year ago, if I understand, you were still operating out of your house. You had
We
a couple
were.
of trucks. You were probably making some of the neighbors angry. Y'all are in an HOA, so you probably were getting angry letters from the HOA.
Actually, we
No?
weren't. Our HOA has been so supportive.
That's
If
fantastic.
anything, we have people that drive around for the town of HOA, and they recommend us.
Really, that's awesome.
So he's such a sweet guy.
I wish my HOA was that nice. I'm on a
Yeah.
regular fight with my HOA, it seems. And my wife points out that it's not just this HOA, it's basically every HOA I've ever lived in, so it might be me.
No, they've been so great. They recommend us. We've had 3, 4, I
That's
think
good.
sometimes 5 trucks parked at our
Yeah.
house. We thankfully have a corner lot. We never got any like negative things from them.
But now you don't have that. You've moved to a location, and that's been game changing. You were telling me
Yeah,
a minute ago.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because like we literally when we first started off, we just started off like in our garage, Grand Prix,
Yep.
and then we were able to build that up to where literally our last year in our HOA house, we did 630,000
That's awesome.
at
That's
our house.
huge.
I had 4
And about how
logo-
many trucks? Four branded trucks?
4
Yeah.
logo trucks parked outside the house, and then the 5th one our employee drove home. And so like it was insane, and like the neighbors were all supportive, the HOA was supportive, and I guess because we're like maybe bettering the community, I don't know, a lot of that of like
It all comes when it comes to HOA. It's just people,
yeah.
and it just depends on how friendly that your board and what their limits are going to be. And
Yeah.
but no, that's awesome. That's a huge blessing.
It was super important to me too to keep our trucks clean and our house looking clean
Yep.
because I was like, if I give them any excuse as to
Right.
be like, hey, we're going to give you a warning,
Right.
I was like, I want to
Not to mention, you've got all those trucks sitting out there. You want the house sitting behind it to look
Yeah.
top notch. You got one of the best
We're-
looking yards in the neighborhood.
We're a billboard.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Like we literally like 2 trucks were parked in the driveway. I wanted them in the driveway, not like 4 parked
Mhm.
down the street because that would be a little crazy. We tried to back them up because we have a lot of signage on the back of the
Yeah.
truck, so we're trying to hide it. You know what I mean? But
Right.
everybody knew like
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But out
We
of
ha-
every street we service, like in any community, but the street that we live on, it had like the most clients out of
Right.
any other
How many
street.
clients? I'm curious. Do you have a big street, like a long street, or are you on like a cul-de-sac?
It does cul-de-sac at one end, but
Yeah,
But you're on
it's
the other
not-
corner.
we probably had, I think, anywhere between 12 to 15 just on our street.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's huge.
yeah.
I can't specifically say that I know of a street that I have ever had 15 homes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
I don't think.
it was crazy because like we could literally send like a 2-man team out and they would be busy all day on that one street. Like,
Really get your gears thinking as far as opportunity,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
I'm like, how much farther do we actually have
Yeah.
to go for route density? I'm like,
Exactly.
just drop a pin, 3-mile radius.
Yeah.
And you'd
Well,
probably
yeah.
take it.
So yeah, go
No,
ahead.
sorry. And we live on the corner, like I mentioned before. So there was a point where we had all 4 corner houses
Yes.
plus one more next door. And so our guys would literally drop the ramp, pull out the mower, and do 5 properties before they get back into the truck.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
It's a
efficiency
beautiful
was
thing.
great.
That's route density right there. Yeah, I can remember. Actually, I remember it specifically. Surrey Lane in Allen, and I had I think 6 homes like that on starting on the corner, 2 corners, and then like 3 in, and then like you'd skip 1 here and you'd skip 2 here, and you'd end up doing a bunch of the others. And, what did you just do there, Brett?
Put the microphone so it's
Oh.
pointing up.
We got some coffee.
That's you see what that coffee cup says? My VP of operations, Cynthia Hernandez, sent that to me. She sent me that along with the T-Pig, the honorary T-Pig
That's awesome.
deal. That was my birthday present a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I told her, I laughed at her. I said, so can I give you the mug right back? I said, like, this is kind of a 2-way street here. She was like, oh, I already have one.
That would be the perfect description of y'all's relationship and how you operate.
Yeah,
It's constant back and forth.
back and forth. And yeah, we definitely, so Cynthia's our VP of ops. She's awesome. She started out in sales for us back in 2017. In 2020, maybe, literally, it was like a Wednesday night. It's like 6:30 p.m. I'd been thinking about it for weeks, but I was like, I need somebody who can really take on the full breadth of all of our operations so that I can truly work on the business, not in the business, in every way, shape, and form. I was already basically kind of doing that, but I was still very much so involved in the day-to-day. And so I was like, I literally randomly, like, to her randomly. To me, I'd been thinking about it, but I was like, so I've been thinking about who would be the president of this company within a matter of a few years, and the only person that comes to mind is you. And I think the way she tells the story is she about fell out of her chair when she did that. She was just doing sales at the time, but yeah, she's been awesome. But her and I's relationship is very much so iron sharpening iron, so to speak. I like people to challenge me and to play devil's advocate, and sometimes I get a little snippy and say, "Shut up." But most of the time, it's very much so healthy and good collaboration.
Mhm.
It's good to have the people that will challenge and play devil's advocate. Sometimes even when they actually agree with you, they're just trying to look at it from all sides. And
Yeah.
I love having a team that
I
does
feel
that.
like we do that very well.
Exactly. Yes.
We do.
Yes.
We do. Yeah.
I
I
imagine you
do.
do, and that's the success that's why you see the success you're seeing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I do that and I tell them too. I'm like, not that I'm trying to like upset you in any way, but I am challenging your thought process to make sure that this is going to be the best outlet possible. Like I want to hear your thoughts.
Yep.
This is how my thoughts are on it. And we do that a lot, and it's been a big learning curve. And I encourage like couples to kind of do businesses together. It's not always going to be easy, but it makes the relationship stronger.
Yes. I was
It
just
really
talking
does.
about this with Jeff and Michaela at lunch, and I know y'all happen to know them. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Because I was encouraging them to to talk business. Who says you can't talk business at the dinner table? And then they challenged me, well, do you and Jennifer talk? And I was like, well, actually, no, we don't. But we could and we would. And it's not any kind of like, but my wife and I, we definitely talk business. And she's not the type that frowns upon it. She's extremely supportive. Like that's a huge, huge thing is having the people closest to you support you in whatever capacity. Sometimes that's partners where you're running the business together. My wife and I have never done that. Not to say that I don't talk to her about our biggest challenges and or major decisions. We definitely talk on those things, but it's not something that we do daily at all. A lot of times it's just, talking more so about kids and those sort of things.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a moment like where you shut it off, like because you're both in it almost 24/7? You guys make time like, all right, now we're done talking that with work. We're gonna be.
We've had to teach ourselves that for sure.
Yeah.
So especially when it was being ran at our house, like our office was our office for work and our office for everything else personally too. So
we did have to teach ourselves that of separating ourselves from work. Now that we have an actual location that our business is ran, yes, we still talk about work at home a little bit here and there, but it has gotten a lot more divided of like,
Right.
okay, when we're here at the office, this is like strategize, game plan, execute. And then when we're at home, it's like, all right, what are some things we got to get done? All right, let's have some free time. We
Right.
like to do a couple games at night too. So like do some gaming, but now our office is more fun and not just work, which is
Right.
nice. So yes, we have learned to do that.
I guess like that'd be something, if I was to start a company with my wife, like, talk to you guys, like,
Mhm.
how do you shut it off? Because we both don't,
Right.
work together. When we come together, we both talk about work for a good 2 hours over dinner and everything, and then we're like, all right, we're done complaining about our days, or, talking about our wins, and then we sit there and watch TV, and I'm like, it doesn't seem healthy.
It's all business. Yeah, no. Yeah, it can't be all business. There's got to be an element. There's got to be a balance. And I think that balance can very much so vary from one relationship to another, from one business or organization to another, or for that matter, people building their own careers, building their own careers, talking. It's like my stepmom, I grew up, you don't talk business, you don't talk politics, you don't talk religion at the dinner table. Personally, that always bothered me because it's like, okay, I can understand a balance. You shouldn't only talk about business at the dinner table. You shouldn't only talk about politics or religion at the dinner table. But where else are you going to talk about, especially politics and religion, other than the dinner table? That's the core root of community, is the family, where the family unit meets, and that's where those things should be talked about. It always rubbed me wrong. But the business side, I think there's a huge gray area. Like, it's not black and white. Like, some people never turn it off, and their whole families never turn it off, and there's health in that, there's balance in that for them. But for another family, that would be a disaster. It wouldn't be good balance. It wouldn't be healthy. I think there's balance in that. I think my wife helps me balance that because I am all business all the time. It doesn't really ever shut off. Even when I'm with my kids, or even when I'm with my wife, I'm in la la land. I've been in la la land my whole life. Look at the notes that the teachers would used to leave my parents at the end of the school year. Like, I'm in la la land. I'm off in another world. And so my wife just, I think, has always both admired and respected that. But I also work to try to be present. But at the same time, I never really turn it off. But we also don't solely talk business. She's not really involved in any day-to-day. So it's easy to not necessarily talk about those things. And it's easy for me to shut off in talking with her, shut off business problems so that I don't come and just throw up problems to her. We're talking again about travel or life or what we're doing with the kids and kids sports and kids school and kids behavior. It works for us, but I think there's a gray area. I think it's to each their own in so many ways.
Yeah. Will and I are very opposite, but like in a good way. So things that he does not like doing, I'm like, oh, I'll do that.
Right.
I'll enjoy it. And things that I don't like doing,
So is that how y'all divide the workload at work? Like, how do y'all divide
and at
that
home.
up? And at home, how do y'all divide up your various tasks?
Yes, so we basically on a whiteboard wrote down every basically like category task in the business of like, hey, what needs to get done?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we literally like started to put our initials next to it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna handle this, you're gonna handle that. I'm super number analytical, thinking, strategize, probably similar to you. I'm always thinking business, to where she is a doer.
Yeah.
She's like, let's not think about it, just do it. And I'm like, but hold on, if you go and do it, there might be another way, and then you might have to go back and redo it, right? So like, I'm more of the strategizer, and she's more of the like managing people operationally. Let's just get the routes done. Like, we need to get this done now.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a good balance.
So do y'all have, like, as far as actual tasks, do y'all have office staff yet?
We do have, so Elizabeth in our office, she handles like all the phone calls, emails, billing. She helps with our payroll.
And does she report to you or both of you, or?
Yeah, so depending on what it is, if it's like payroll and stuff related numbers, it's all to
So
him.
you're kind of office manager, administrative, you're field operations.
It's the other way. So I'm more admin.
Okay.
She's more operationally, more like the general manager, operations manager,
That's
managing
awesome.
the crews and stuff.
Okay. Awesome. And so you've brought on, now did she work for you last year when you were at home, where she was still?
I came over, so I had such a hard time like leaving Aldi because the people that were there were fantastic, great work environment. I loved it. And it was really hard for me to actually leave them. But it was for our own good, you know? And so I put in my 2 weeks very respectfully. And I was like,
How long
then
ago? When was this?
COVID happened.
Oh, okay.
Like the day or 2 days after I put in my 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh no. Like I promised I didn't know this was happening. And, you know, grocery stores went crazy. I'm like, if you need me for an extra week, I can stay an extra week.
Wow.
So I did really kind of help and work with them as much as I could while also coming over. So yeah, it was in March of 2020.
Okay.
About then.
Awesome.
But yeah.
And when she came over, we were doing, I think it was like around probably 125,000. And then that year we jumped up to like 365,000. So
Oh, wow. So you went from
huge-
125 one year to 365 the next.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
She's
awesome.
huge. Like when
Huge
she came over, it
growth.
unlocked so much.
Yeah, so my first few years were 125, I think, first year, but then second year was only like 220. And then it wasn't until like the 5th year that I passed 400, I think. We were slow growing.
We grew really, really fast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I say
Really
slow. We were doubling for a few years, but not to the extent that y'all.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you were talking earlier, you were talking about the growth where we live. I
Mhm.
believe that you guys, and for that matter, we all live in pretty much one of the best counties and clusters of zip codes in all of the America, therefore all of the world. Have you ever looked into or gone on to Google and Googled something along the lines of Aubrey, Texas comprehensive plan or Frisco, Texas comprehensive plan? Have you ever done that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I would encourage you to do it. If you like analytics and strategy and looking at maps, you like maps?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you got to do this. Google this weekend. Prosper, Texas comprehensive plan, McKinney, Texas comprehensive plan. I actually need to do Aubrey's. It's been a few years and Aubrey wasn't really on the radar at the time that I did this last. But what these are, you've heard of the economic development corporations in all these different cities. Frisco's got an economic development corporation. McKinney's got one. I think Prosper has one. I don't know about Aubrey. And I don't know the details about what they do on a day-to-day. I kind of do. But one of the things they do is they take the entire land mass geographic area of Aubrey, Texas, or Prosper, Texas. Frisco's done this. You can find this on all these cities. And they literally map out to probably about an 80 to 85% accuracy what will be residential, what will be multifamily, where major roads will go through,
Interesting.
everything. You can see the future of where Collin County Outer Loop will go. You can see where Dallas Parkway will go through. You got to look this up.
Yeah.
You got to look this
I have
up.
it pulled up.
Oh, you got it pulled up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's
Yeah.
really
Downtown
cool.
Aubrey. Yeah, you got to look this up. And I wouldn't read all this. I don't usually read the details, but you go to the maps.
Nobody
I like
likes
the
doing
pictures.
those,
That's
yeah.
right. I like picture books. But you can literally kind of keep going.
I have gone online to try and figure out future things that are coming in.
That's
so
what
this
this-
is going to be really cool.
This-
Yeah,
there it
that's
is. Hold on.
huge.
That's the analysis of downtown. But what it'll show, it'll show where, like at Aubrey, I'm thinking like 423, and maybe that's not quite Aubrey, but it'll show all the major roads and how they're going to expand, like where your real estate is for your shop. It'll show what that's going to eventually be.
That's really cool.
It's really cool. I love this stuff. I'd say 90% of it is nonsense, like what we're scrolling through right now. But
Yeah, especially
there it is. Go back right there. Kind of. That's something. I can't tell what that is.
Yeah.
Every one of them is different too, because they pay, they have different companies do this.
Mhm.
But I would encourage you to look at all the different cities you service.
Yeah.
It's really good for just daydreaming about what the future can be. I love flying into Dallas Fort Worth Airport for the same reason. Like you just look at all that opportunity of suburbia out there. I
Yeah.
love it.
Well, we
Absolutely.
love seeing when you see like all the ground getting broken for
Uh-huh.
new development, new
Yes.
homes.
Uh-huh.
I mean, as much as I do love like the country and it being quiet and horses, it's amazing. But for our business, it is amazing when you see all these houses that are about to be built. It's
Not
very
only your
exciting.
business, but yes, your business, your entrepreneurial. And I know what you mean. One of my longtime dreams, it's kind of taken a back burner to a lot of other things the last few years. My wife would definitely agree with, but one of my long-standing dreams is I want to own a ranch. Why do I want to own a ranch? Quite frankly, because The guy my dad worked for when I was 7 years old owned a 2,000 acre ranch in Tyler, and I wanted to be like that guy. It just always seems so cool. So I know what you mean. I love the country and all that. But when it comes to business, or when it comes to even growing up, I grew up here in Allen. And when I was growing up in Allen, Allen looked like Van Alstyne. And seeing that development, that's the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm on these different social media sites for McKinney or McKinney Cares or the Colony. I'm on these different community groups. I'm sure y'all are on a bunch of them as well.
Yeah.
And you get people that are so angry that new development's coming in and ruining their view. And I'm like, don't you realize the opportunity in that? Like, it doesn't matter where you work. It doesn't matter. There is opportunity in suburban expansion.
Mm-hmm.
That's people. That's people living their lives. And the more comfortable you can provide that, and there's a reason that suburbia tends to grow, even when it gets a bad rap. It's the best for most people. It is a better way of life. It's hard to live in the country. You got to cook all your food. There's no DoorDash to deliver to you. It's crappy to live on a concrete jungle because you lose certain elements of space. Suburbia is just like that sweet spot when it comes to most, not all. I understand there's people that love the city, there's people that love the country, but there's a reason suburbia continues to expand. It's because the lifestyle has value.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it also has value to entrepreneurs like us.
Absolutely. Yeah, this economy is tremendous. It's amazing.
And look, the
Absolutely.
economy, everybody talks about the economy. They've talked about that at Landscape Summit a little bit. The economy, but at the same time, in the industries we're in, who's going to mow their yard? Like even in 2009 around here, I was building my business. I was doing $100,000 a year, $500,000 a year or so in the 2006 to 2010 time period. And there's still business to be done, even in a bad economy. And obviously, you talk about like a catastrophic, like we can't control that, so why even worry about it? But I've always believed that in home services, again, that grass still has to be mowed,
Mm-hmm.
or you're going to have problems with snakes and all sorts of other stuff. The grass, somebody's going to mow that grass, and more often than not, if somebody's on a budget crunch, they can't afford to go to Home Depot and buy equipment. It just makes more sense to pay somebody to do it, even in a bad economy.
Mm-hmm.
Less so for different luxury services. Poop scooping is a little more of a luxury service. It's also a little less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And that's why we love that we do still offer the mowing, because we talked about it back in the day of like, well, it's not like your most profitable service, but it's a necessity.
it's a necessity
It's
and
a
it's low-hanging
necessity.
fruit. I wanted to get out of mowing, especially when I was when I was 500,000 to 3 million in mowing, especially because of the labor challenges of mowing. It's so labor intensive.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to do it. It's not exactly the most it's not going to make you it's not going to make you rich mowing yards, and so there's just not an enormous amount of long-term opportunity in mowing yards. Other skilled trades, there's long-term opportunity in being a pest technician or a plumber or a FERT technician. There's people that make careers out of that. W-2 guys pushing lawnmowers don't usually, like 1 out of 100, they make a career out of it. Right? They usually move on to something else. And so it adds so many problems with mowing. At the same time, I mean, I don't know, how many yards are you mowing a week?
So we have close to just shy of like 200 mowing customers, but we like all of our mowing customers have our weed control, so we don't do mow
so
only.
you got it.
So
Mhm.
each
Yeah.
client that we have, the revenue.
I
is
think
higher.
you're doing something right, and I would encourage you to push through on the mowing personally, because I wanted to get out of mowing for the longest time, and I am really glad I didn't,
Right.
because at volume, it does start to really pay off, and it doesn't have the labor challenges if you do it in certain ways. I'm really glad we didn't get out of mowing, but for the longest time, I was trying to look at ways out. I do think it's wise to diversify, and I think fertilization weed control is huge. And what y'all are doing, tying the fertilization, what you're doing, you also probably only allow weekly mowing,
Mhm.
Yeah.
no biweekly.
Yeah.
You're getting a premium customer,
Mhm.
and I think there's huge value in that.
Yeah,
Now, I have a business partner. You ever heard of Mowing R Us?
I have not.
I think I have, but yeah, maybe.
That's my business. I have a business partner. That's him.
Really? Interesting.
He did something that frankly is remarkable, and I give him enormous props. I don't even know, I still to this day, I'm trying to dissect how he did it. The competitive nature in me really gets angry. But he went out a year ago. So backstory. We bought Executive Lawn Care, which was a competing mowing business with Emerald Lawn and Landscaping, my company. They started Executive Lawn Care in 2004. He ran it until 2014 when I bought it from him. It was doing about $1 million a year when I bought it from him. He had about 6 trucks, but I really liked his setup. He wasn't using service autopilot, but the rest of his systems and processes was similar to mine. So we worked a deal. He subcontracted us his fertilization first. And we literally competed with Mowing. So we promised him we wouldn't take his clients. I think he had 250 FERT clients, and we promised him we wouldn't do it, and we did a handshake deal. And we took care of his FERT clients and he helped us establish our first 2 FERT trucks. And then a few years later, we bought his business, bought him out. He was an older gentleman and was looking to do something. He always joked mowing yards was a young man's game because he was working 12-hour days. He was there when the guys got there. He wasn't done until the guys left. But he built an awesome business. We bought that in 2014. In 2016, we had this awesome website, executivelawncare.net, and it was not doing anything for us, and it was going to kind of just die. And so I had a friend, David, that was friends with my business partner and I. He paid us $20,000 and got 30% equity in executivelawncare.net and began just building clients. And that's a business that we own together. He and I and my business partner, we own. You ever heard of Executive Lawn Care? You're familiar with this. You were at the Landscape Summit. So he went and built that business to a $4 million mowing business, David. And a couple of years ago, he basically stepped away from building that business and kind of took some time off. And last year at this time, he decided, I'm bored. I don't want to go. I'm not going and getting a new job. And so he said, I'm going to do what I know. I'm going to go get mowing clients. So I'm going to start another competing mowing business. So I have Chorby competing with Executive Lawn Care. He now has Mowing R Us competing with Executive Lawn Care, but we're partners at Executive Lawn Care. We're very friendly partners, as you can see. We don't mind being competitors as well. There's more than enough work out there, right?
Yep.
He went out from January 1st to today. He was just telling me last week. He went out and he converted almost 1,500 clients in a year. Wow. Mow, blow, and go. 1,500 clients. Now, he had high turnover. Of the 1,500 clients he converted, he's only at like 950, doing like 600 homes a week. You know what's nuts? This is going to piss y'all off. It pisses me off. He doesn't even know how to mow a yard.
Wow.
He just knows how to work the phones, answer the phones, handle his website, take care of his clients, be the middleman between the guys doing the work and the clients who need it. He's the opposite of every mow guy out there. When you're on the phone with him, look, if you don't care what the yard looks like, just get bi-weekly. I can do it for you for this much. Who out there, I'm not saying that if I'm selling mowing, I'm like, you need weekly mowing. You need, he's doing the opposite. He is the definition of a bi-weekly client, an avatar. Because he was a client of his services years before he was even in mowing. Yeah. He paid companies. He is the definition of a bi-weekly client. So he understands that niche and understands what those homeowners want. And it tends to be a higher turnover, lower quality client. They're not looking to spend lots of money. They just want to get the job done. But he found a niche and it works for him. And it really frustrates me, but it's awesome because it's a good testament to hustling and gaining that success and being good at answering the phone.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Observe the masses and do the opposite.
I've nicknamed him now. He's now the master mower man is what I've nicknamed him. I've told him he should be speaking at all these conferences because there's basically nobody in this country who I've ever heard of that can gain 1,000 mowing clients in a single year. I've never heard of it happening. Yeah. Anywhere. Even I've never heard of it happening. Not from zero. Like starting from zero and going to 1,000 clients is just unheard of. Right. I don't know how he's done it.
Yeah, that's a lot. I'm
trying to figure out how he's dissected, and I don't understand it. And then on top of that, he's like, he travels. He goes to Las Vegas more often than I do. Like he travels. He goes to Mexico. He travels with his family. Yeah. But he's always got that phone next to him. Mm-hmm. He's just always there handling it. It also helps that he's bilingual. Are either of y'all bilingual?
No.
Do you struggle with that at all?
Not really.
No.
All of our guys speak English. I think we have 2 guys that can speak a little
Really?
Spanish, like if they
Mhm.
needed to.
Now, how do you get team members? Is it H2B or is it just local?
It's
You just-
all local,
Oh,
all
wow.
W-2. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
We've struggled so much
Mm-hmm.
trying to find, and that's no matter what business you're in. And so like I've dug super deep into like how do we take care of our employees? Like I literally I told the guys last week, like my mission is to have a line out the door of people
Yep.
wanting to come and work here.
Yep.
And how do we do that? Like it's one simple question is how do we become the best employer in town?
Yep.
That like everybody wants to come and gravitate to us. So like some of the things that we actually just recently implemented is free snacks when they come in the morning. They can get 3 items. So we got beef jerky, drinks, all this stuff. So we have like a snack cabinet
Love it.
full. So
It
every time they
eliminates
come
their
in,
stop at the gas station
Yep.
every
eliminates
morning.
their stop.
It increases efficiency,
It does.
builds rapport, builds
Yeah.
goodwill.
Saves me some bucks. Easy.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And sometimes they, I mean, you know how it is. Like you got mowing, and like people that are mowing lawns, like they don't have tons of money. They're living paycheck to paycheck. So for them to come in on their first day of work and be like, oh wow, I get a couple of Cliff bars and
Yep.
protein bars, like wow, this is my breakfast, and for them not to have to pay is like huge for them. We just implemented 2 weeks pay time off in the first year for all
That's
frontline,
awesome.
and then 3 weeks after 12 months for
Okay.
literally people mowing lawns. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what
Mhm.
other mow company is doing 2 weeks pay time off, in their first year. What are some other things that we?
No, you're right. There's not. I mean,
um,
City Turf, I think, has something similar, but very few.
yeah,
The City Turf's not even a competitor of y'all, are they?
They're in a different market.
Different
or
market,
different
Yeah,
area.
because y'all are. But y'all go to Frisco.
For a little bit of weed control we do when
Okay,
we
so
yeah,
expanded
it's
that,
very
but
minimal.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're looking at that area for a potential down the road
Yeah.
location. But we also have,
Oh no, Brent, the camera fell.
So you're gonna have to hold it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. We also just rolled out another benefit for our team, which we were really excited about to make sure it's like making us stand out for everybody else. I had 1 letter every day and in the office area for them to find. And I was like,
Oh.
I won't hide it too difficult. It'll be somewhat in sight. And so every day they found a letter. It was in a random order. They'd put it on the table and they had to unscramble it. And so we actually got some video footage of that. We'll put that out,
That's
I'm sure
awesome.
soon. But they had to unscramble it. And one of our guys finally got it right before Thanksgiving. And they were like, I don't want to say it, but I kind of
Is
want
it
to
an
say
acronym? Is it like
It was
it's
what
different
our
word for every
benefit-
day
No, it was
or different letter?
different letter every day. And it was
And
the
then-
newest benefit we were going to be offering.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and
we were
so
surprising
we
them.
were surprising them with it, making a game out of it for them too. And so he's like, I want to say it, but I don't want to say it. He's like, is it vacation? And we're like, oh, no way, he got it. So I was trying to leave like the letter V for the last one, like last letter to go out there. He's
So y'all
giving them
just
one time.
introduced, that's the PTO you're talking about, 2 weeks? Or
No,
now
so
3
we're
weeks. So this is on
actually-
top of that?
On top
Yeah,
of
we're
that.
actually going to
wow.
be like gifting or like giving one of our guys, whoever wins it that
I
year.
see.
a
An
vacation.
actual vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, fully
Oh,
paid
fantastic.
for them plus a guest. Drinks paid for, food
Yeah.
paid for.
Flights.
4 or 5 day.
That's awesome. No,
um,
you guys are, and I've told this team, and as I've taught, you guys are absolutely doing things. I mean, y'all are doing it right. You're doing it every time as we've gotten to know each other just the last year and a half. I mean, you're absolutely doing all of the right things. You're focused in the right areas. That's my perspective at least.
Yeah.
It reminds me. I was very aggressive early in like 2010, 2011, 2012 in seeking out those relationships. Jonathan Potoshanik really helped me in
Mhm.
so many different ways, but it started from me just saying, hey, can I buy you lunch? And then it was like, okay, when can I buy you lunch again? Okay. Now when can I buy you lunch again? And it just, and looking and seeking out that advice and that help. And of course,
Yep.
he's always been awesome in being able to provide wisdom and support, even as a competitor.
mhm.
He's never looked at things like that. And I've always
I think
appreciated
that's
that.
what's so great about our landscaping industry of people is like none of us see each other as competitors. We are, but
Yeah.
we're all here to help each other. So, and
Yeah,
Will
by
loves
and
helping
large, now
people.
not all. You know, there is actually, you know who one of the largest mowing businesses in Collin County is? You probably have almost never heard of them. They're called mow managers. You ever heard of mow
No, I haven't.
managers? Do some Googling, like Google lawn mowing Frisco. You might see them up there in the sponsored ad, mow managers. That is actually they're a huge business. They service Oklahoma City, they service Austin, they service Dallas Fort Worth. I
Wow.
think they might service Chicago and these other locations. But the owner of that company, he was a young guy back in the early 2000s. He was an early adopter. What really grew his business was he was a very early adopter of internet websites in the early 2000s in lawn mowing and requiring credit cards and a number of other things that Jonathan Potoshanik basically took mainstream in a lot of ways, using the Lawn Care Millionaire and building his service autopilot. He took a lot of those things and took a totally different approach. Whereas Mow Manager's guy, I won't mention his name, but he might sue me. He's not very friendly from what I've heard. But Mow Manager's guy took a whole different approach. Like he got burned once or twice by people copying his stuff, and he didn't like that. And so he got like real secretive real fast. Whereas Jonathan went in a whole different direction, was like, I'll tell everybody everything. And you know, we're going to grow the industry together. And Jonathan's approach, I always thought, but there are some people in this industry that are very much so like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to tell anybody what I'm doing. And there's the Mow Managers is like that. I never personally met him, but he also pioneered the landscape trucks, the old Ford Rangers like City Turf used to use that had the rigs on the back of the truck. That was actually an innovation of Mow Managers 25 years ago.
Interesting.
That lots of people copied, and he didn't like that very much.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, though, I agree with you. The industry as a whole is extremely friendly in that regard. Not all home services businesses are that way, or industries are that way. I've found, as I've kind of ventured into other home service businesses, some of them are very like protective. They're either very protective because they're just like, I don't know, worried about competition or whatever, or saturation, or they're protective in the sense that they think their skill set, their skilled trade, their thing, whether it's pest control or pools or whatever, that it takes so much knowledge and understanding and learning that you couldn't possibly enter this industry without any experience. You know, they have like almost this arrogance that it's like, you could never be in this industry until you go and work for somebody for 10 years. You can't do what I do. And I always found that kind of funny too.
Yeah.
Because I always thought you can hire people that have that knowledge.
Right.
So it's like, you can enter those industries. It just costs a little more money.
Yeah, I think it's been really cool because Will's always looked up to people that are where they are where he wants to be, and so he's reaching up. But while he's reaching up, he's also reaching down and helping.
Exactly, and that's how I feel about it, and that's definitely a benefit to what we do here and what we're trying to put together is transparency.
Yeah.
Just talk and help people, and the industry can grow as a whole. There's plenty of pies to be created is what I always use. I use that analogy in the pet waste industry.
Yeah.
Plenty more business. I'm not competing directly with y'all. There's people moving in from California every day. You know, it's like you can't have enough work.
There's so many people here that there's no reason to have like that.
And continuing to come.
Yeah.
I think that's going to continue too, regardless of what the economy does. We live in an awesome part of the country.
Yeah.
I tell him all the time, I'm like, I'm so glad we moved here when we did.
Yeah. Good timing.
Yeah, very good timing.
What have you guys talked about? What your like 3 or 5 year expansion, like growth? What are you guys looking to do?
Yes.
Yeah. So we started in 2019. We had our first big location, or the main location, that did 630,000 last year, finished off. We just opened a second one in Salina now. So that one is probably about 15 customers right now, just getting it off.
And that's an operator that's at a different location. He's close to you, just a few zip codes over, but it's an operator operating some specific services.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a different location.
So our headquarters is up in Pilot Point. We're
Right.
actually going to run both locations out of that.
Okay.
So that way we can park the trucks there. Me acting as a regional manager can oversee the 2 operation managers per se, and just have a good handle on things. But yeah, we'll be able to park the trucks there and all that stuff.
So I'm curious, what defines a branch for you? if you're out of the same location, what defines that it's a different branch? How are you defining that?
So basically everything. So it's a different business, LLC. It's completely
Okay.
separate. The books are completely separate. Software is completely separate.
Okay.
The payroll is completely separate. So we're actually running two payrolls,
Yeah.
two different companies, keeping everything
So
separate,
it's two separate companies,
completely separate.
other than you're using the same name, obviously, the same DBA.
Same DBA, and then they're both sharing, so they're both companies would be paying rent
Mm-hmm.
to one of our other companies. Our real, it's like
The
all
company,
in
so
real
you
estate.
bought your
Yeah,
you bought your property.
we did.
Yeah.
Huge. That
Yeah.
I've done well with real estate as I've bought and made sure not to rent for too long. But I have also not been very disciplined in not buying things with wheels. And so I haven't bought as much real estate as I could have, is my point.
Yeah.
But real estate, making sure you own your real estate. I mean, that's, if you think about the last 50 years in home services, that is like that's like your fallback, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like if the business just stays flat for a decade, your real estate's still going to you're still gonna have something in that real estate. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think in the beginning days, reading like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki and all that,
Yeah.
like it talks about like to build wealth, you have to own things,
Yeah.
right? Like at a job, like you don't own anything per se,
Right.
right? So like us as entrepreneurs and like wanting to build long-term wealth, like the key to that is ownership.
Yep.
And so like, I always thought it was kind of crazy too, of like these really big companies, like, actually Larissa's sister works at one of these big like healthcare companies, and they like rent out an office space, like this office building, and I'm like, it to me, I'm
shocks
like,
me.
wait,
Yeah.
they don't own it? I'm like,
Agreed.
why don't they own
It
the
has
building?
always shocked me how, whether it's big business, medium business, or for that matter, small business, the rents. Your local Smoothie King, which is a franchise,
Mhm.
they don't own that usually. Now, man, they might own the whole strip if there's a wealthy guy that puts a Smoothie King in his strip. But in most cases, you look at your local Smoothie King or your local Einsteins or these shopping, these storefronts, Paleos. I'm thinking of the different things that I maybe go to here and there.
Yeah.
They don't own those, and the square footage is outrageously expensive.
Yeah.
And so whether it's that, but going back to even like Class A office space and the whole remote work versus hybrid work versus, like, I've always been a fan of remote work because I don't want to pay for office space. Like, that's one area. I'm not considered a very frugal person. My wife laughs at me. I asked her one time, I said, do you think I'm very frugal? And she just laughed. She thought it was funny. But I'm not very frugal. But where I've been frugal my entire business and my entire adult life is I've always been very frugal with office space. Right, Ben? Ben will joke with you and tell you I once put him in a laundry room as an office.
For a while.
Now I won't even give him an office. So how do you like that? But no, I've always been a big fan of the remote for the same like this, thinking the same way. Like the cost, even if I own it, the cost is so high, especially if it's like commercial, like true commercial space.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you. But I've recently done a 180 and learned that there is enormous value in getting people together, getting your team members together. So I've done a bit of a 180. I was excited when COVID hit that like the whole world was finally going to catch up to my opinions on remote work. And then in the last 3 years, as we did and have had fully remote, it works in many cases. Lots of people do fantastic at fully remote, but not everybody. And
Right.
it does create communications challenges. So I've done a 180. I'm a believer in hybrid work. I'm still cheap when it comes to office space.
Yeah.
Yeah, our office, Elizabeth, she gets to work from her home, but thankfully she's in the same neighborhood as us.
Yeah,
So she's not even far,
right.
but
So
all
you
of her
get to see
training's
her
in
and-
house.
Yeah, training has a huge impact in person versus like we've done the remote work thing for our administration for some time. I think Mike Andes talks about this a little bit, or his experience similar. He was fully remote for some time and had some really tough springs. And then I think he brought his team back into the office.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, we're gonna get this figured out. And nope, we're back. We're on hybrid. We like the hybrid concept.
Yeah, I think hybrid works well, but I wanted to thank you actually, because I don't know if you remember when I called and I was trying to figure out like an office space. What was it like? Actually,
That's probably a year ago.
and a
Yeah, I
half ago.
vaguely
Yeah.
remember it.
But I mean, that we bought that property because I saw
Oh, yeah. Good. Are
mentorship.
you,
from,
you're
like,
glad you bought it? Good, good.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Is it an old house? Is it all commercial? Is it a shed or a metal building? What is it?
It's a 3-bed, 2-bath.
Okay.
Sits
Okay, I
on-
remember. Yeah.
Sits on 2.5 acres. It's got a couple of like metal sheds out there where we hold
Yeah.
everything, and we just like put everything. We just turned it into an office. We poured gravel out there, so we have
Yep.
parking and everything.
Yep.
Put our massive, there's like a 9-foot sign out there, like on the
Nice. So
building.
you're able to get, so you've got signage and so you've got like traffic. You're on a road with traffic.
It's out in the country. It's more north right
Okay.
now, but eventually.
Is it
yeah.
Aubrey though?
It is
It's-
Aubrey. So
it's-
there's like a main road.
No, I think
We're
it's
right
Pilot
off of
Point.
that.
It's
Or, I'm
Pilot
sorry,
Point. It's
Pilot Point, yeah.
Southern Pilot Point or-
Southern
Yeah.
end.
Okay,
It's
nice.
southern.
Yeah, but still, man, that property, I don't know what you paid for it, but it'll be worth 2 to 5 times what it's currently worth, in my experience, my belief, in a matter of a decade.
We
Yeah.
talked to one of the people that owns land like kitty corner from us, and I think they're going to be selling and they're going to be building about maybe 1 acre homes right
Nice.
there.
That's awesome. Now, do y'all do big properties like that, 1 acre lots?
1 acre, no, we don't. Well, it depends how much turf there is to mow.
Okay.
So we
What's
do-
your
we
max
do-
on turf?
8,500 turf.
Okay, yeah, it's hard to do an acre.
Yeah.
Even so, I'm on an acre right here, and I've got this thing way landscaped. That's why I'm
Mhm.
fighting my HOA. They don't like the amount of landscaping I have, but it's still like an acre's 43,000 square feet. I
Mhm.
think I have like 22,000 in turf area. It's hard to get an acre down to 8,500 square feet.
Yeah.
That's our sweet spot too.
Mhm.
We've always been maximum. Well, historically, we were maximum of 10,000 square feet of turf. We've gone up. Now we'll do up to 3 acres, but our like 98.5% of our business is all under 10,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a sweet spot for us. We don't have to buy trailers.
Yep.
We don't have to buy zero turns.
And that's exactly the way we built. I've just now in the last 2 years attempted to go out and we bought riding mowers. We started doing, using subcontractors in some cases, using some in-house labor in some cases, doing like this neighborhood or acre type lots. But it literally out of 3,000 mows a week, even to this day, it's like we have like 12. It's very lackluster to say the least.
Yeah.
We haven't broken into it yet. We don't really fully know how to quote it, in all honesty. Like we kind of do, but it's just hard. It's more competitive.
Yeah.
It's a lot more competitive. And when you're talking about a $10,000 machine, it shouldn't be more competitive. It should be
Mhm.
much more expensive than it is.
We recently talked about that, and I'm like, I don't understand why a lot of landscapers
underpriced.
do want to go commercial.
You're right. It's inexperience. People don't understand. Most business owners don't understand their numbers, and it comes in that it's their perceived value. They're looking at these big companies that do these big commercial contracts, and they're thinking that, well, that's what I need. I did the same thing. In fact, I hired my business partner. When we hired, it was like, hey, help me start this poop scooping business. We'll be equal partners here, but your day job will be helping me build this mowing business commercially. This is when we were $400,000 a year in revenue back in 2011. And we quickly realized, and I quickly figured out, okay, your margins in residential, 15, 20, 25% net profit. You got a lot more phone calls, angry people, picky people, blah, blah, blah. You got that. But you got higher margins, whereas
Exactly.
your commercial, you might lose money if you underbid it. You might make 2%, you might make 6% if you're really lucky and you're a great salesperson. You can build that value and build a relationship with a commercial job. Maybe you're going to make 12% net profit. And then I started thinking, I was like, the labor is the biggest challenge in this entire game. The labor, it's supply and demand, finding the people to do the work. Wouldn't I, if that's the challenge, wouldn't I rather for every person I hire make 20, 25% net, 15% net doing residential versus 5%, 7%, 12% doing commercial? Like I make more money per person. And if the person is the value, finding somebody who will do the work, I always found myself looking back at residential thinking, this commercial thing doesn't make any sense. And then you hear about big companies and how they operate on like razor thin margins, like razor thin. And it's like, I don't want to do that. So we've stayed away from commercial, but I also I keep trying to get into it, and it's so hard to get into it.
Yeah.
I keep trying to get into it. I keep trying to get those 15 or 10 and 12 and 15% net margins, it doesn't work.
I think the
for
other
me.
tricky part too is if you have the employees set and the equipment already set to handle so many commercials,
Yeah.
but then you lose one of those contracts, that's a big hit.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's also the thing I always looked at. Used to say like, okay, I got 1,000 clients. I have to do a really, really, really bad job
Yeah.
before I lose so many clients because I'm bad at what I do. Like you have to be really bad once you get to 1,000 clients or 500 clients or whatever. Like you have to do really bad to get fired 250 times to lose half your business.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're in commercial and your things are falling apart because your procedures aren't there and maybe you grew too fast, yeah, you piss 3 contracts off, you could lose it could be 25% of your business.
Mhm.
And so that was another piece that I always looked at, and it just never fully appealed to me. Now that we've gotten bigger, I want in on that, but yeah, it's slow going.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have one of our friends that we met early on once we moved here, and he was in residential. He was a couple neighborhoods away from us,
Okay.
and he made the transition to go to commercial. And I think he's doing pretty well
Did he
at
like
it,
he likes it?
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you find your niche, if you find those relationships, it can absolutely work,
Mhm.
especially if you're not very good on the soft skills and keeping residential clients happy. You can probably do a lot better on the commercial side if you're a good salesperson, but maybe you're not as good at managing all those people. You can definitely find your niche in commercial.
Mhm.
I always found it easier to just deal with the people than going and getting big contracts.
Hmm.
I also was never very good at contracts, like the commercial
Well, like you said, it's
contract.
hard to quote something like that when you're not used to it. too.
Exactly. I even understand the basics of how these big companies do it. You know, they measure linear footage of edging and they measure linear footage of weed eating and they measure turf square footage. I mean, I understand the basic premise of how they quote them, but then actually doing the quote,
Mhm.
I was never very confident in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about profit sharing, or not profit sharing, but like profit percentages and stuff. So with us being like pretty heavily with the residential clients, I think we're getting a little squeezed right now because we have a property now. We were operating out of our house, so the overhead has dramatically increased. I think Larissa and I are really non-producers with our office managers, so we
Mhm.
basically have like 3 non-producers, and we have, I'd say it varies on the field, but anywhere from like 6 to 9 field workers.
Okay.
So I guess like from an office side perspective, and I think I've asked you this question before, and you said like a 1 to 6 ratio of like 1 office person to 6 field members.
Totally varies, but yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, we have the field operations like really dialed in, but right now we're like, I think struggling on the office side to
Yeah.
where like, I mean, I'm like, man, like, how are we going to do all this work? We got to hire another person, but I'm like, no, I don't think that's the answer. I think we need to build our systems better and automations and like do more with less people on this side. You know what I mean?
It's always been a battle. It's still a battle. Our office administrative, especially at Shoreby, because we offer so many services that I can't even list them all, which is for better or for worse. It's for better in our long-term strategy. It's for worse in the short-term pain. But we've always battled this. Administrative support, your client care center, as I call it, or your command center, that is the biggest challenge in my experience for us. Now, part of this is because of a lot of the last 4 years of remote work. That added a whole nother layer of challenge to it. But this is actually a bigger challenge even for us today, and especially a year ago, than the manpower in the field. It's always been finding that balance. I've always looked at it as a ratio of clients. I've never really looked at it as a ratio of people in the field. I've always looked at it as a ratio of client count. And interesting, I was actually messaging with the owner of one of the local competitors down on this way. I don't think he's a competitor of y'all's College Fund Landscaping. He is a really sharp guy, really savvy business guy. He's built an awesome business. I don't know how big he is. He's got probably 15 trucks, but he really has duplicated what City Turf and Jonathan Potosnik did, and he's done it very methodically, and he's got a great business and a great lifestyle for himself. I totally lost my train of thought on why I was telling you that. Thank you. He was talking to me, and we were talking a few months ago via text, and his his administrative person admin ratio to client count was like half of mine. Like he was talking about how he needs a person for every like 800 clients. And I was like, I'd be broke if I had an office person for every 800 clients. Like we're at like 15, like one office person for every 1,500 clients or something. And we offer tons of services, which adds complications for your administrative staff. And so it's always been perplexing to me. There's not an exact number is my point.
Yeah.
There's not. We have, and I'll also say we've come a long way. I'm not the one to talk to about it because I don't know all the details, but we've really done a good job. This summer, my VP of operations, I was talking about Cynthia earlier, she, after years of us just process of elimination, okay, this doesn't work, let's try this. This doesn't work, now let's try this. Process of elimination. This summer, we finally feel like we kind of got our stride on incentivizing an administrative team. Many of them are still remote. Some of them are hybrid. New hires are hybrid, they're local. But a lot of our team was actually doing quite well working remotely, and so we kept them remote. But we incentivized. They all get commissions. They all have KPIs that incentivize a metric that she came up with. The acronym is ACAR, Average Client Annual Revenue Recurring, and it's literally measuring the clients that are getting revenue or annual revenue and measuring what's the average client's annual revenue of recurring services. Because if we can increase that by $50 a year, you know, this year they spend every client spends $1,000 a year. Next year, every client spends $1,100 a year. That's incredible growth just in your internals. Be careful on that. Don't go out and expand a bunch of services. I wouldn't recommend that from personal experience. But long term, it'll pay off.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer is what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
It's totally, and it is a challenge. And when you're running that 600 to 1 million, where you have to start thinking about that admin staff, because that is, y'all are kind of in that point where you're like, you got to start thinking about that staff. You move from, it gets more competitive where you really need to, this is my experience in the past, you've got to figure out how to raise your prices. And that's how you pay for that. But now it's harder to sell. You can't grow as fast because your pricing isn't as competitive. And finding that balance. When I remember in 2011, when I started hiring our first office people, 2011 to 2013, we were still doing yards at $20 a mow, which by today's math would probably be like a $24 weekly mow or a $26 weekly mow. Well, I quickly learned that if I was going to invest in hiring a business partner or bringing on a business partner and paying them a salary and bringing on office people, I couldn't have $20 mows anymore. Like that works when it's you and your guys in the field. What'd you call them? Non-productive team members, non-producing team members.
Yeah.
As you begin to add that non-producing team members, you can't be as competitive. You can't make that concession when you're dealing with a client, when you're standing out there in their front yard and they're kind of negotiating with you. You've got to stick to your gun. This is my experience. You got to stick to your guns a little bit more and explain why you can't meet that other competitor's price because it's 10% or 20% less than what you've quoted. Well, they just don't know their numbers. And let me tell you, competing with lawn and landscape competitors that don't know their numbers is like the name of the game. Very few of your competitors really understand their numbers. So you're always dealing with guys that are lowballing you. And as you add your admin, it becomes more of a challenge.
Yeah. See, that's mind-boggling for me because like we have probably 375 customers overall because we have some customers that just have rent control. And it's like, I mean, we're sometimes struggling throughout the year of like, you know, our one admin team member like handling all of that. And we're like, okay. And so if you guys are doing 1,500 to 1 non-producing revenue, I'm like, okay, we got to get
that's
our
the thing.
systems
And
right.
I know, and that's where like, again, the college fund guy, I was like, well, am I doing something wrong? Like he's got one person for every 800 clients. He's got a great reputation. I don't remember exactly what his numbers were, but he was saying, I think it was 600 or 800. It was under 1,000. And I'm like, I'm literally thinking to myself, because in the middle of this, we're having these problems. Like I've got 6 people, I think, or 5 client care people, what we call client care people. We now call them CAMs, Chorby account managers. But we've got 5 CAMs or 6 CAMs, and we got 7,000 clients. And so about 1,500 clients for each one of those. And they're all busy, and they're all saying like, the inbox is full. Like we're working 50 hours a week or something crazy, 60 hours a week and to get the job done. But then I'm like, if I hired 5 more CAM team members, I couldn't do media. I couldn't do marketing. I couldn't do it. And there'd still be break even. And we're moderate to high on the pricing. Like, it's not like we're underpriced really.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is economics, like finding that balance economically to where, but yeah, I can tell you this. I was running my business by myself with no admin until about 350 or so clients. And then it was my business partner and I tag teaming the office and the operations from around 350 clients, about 350,000 a year in revenue, to probably 700. It wasn't until we had about 700,000 a year in revenue or so, which would have probably been 3 mow trucks and not a FERT, 3 mow trucks, maybe 1 FERT truck and a bush and bed landscapes truck. And that's when in 2013, when we really hired our first admin. I think we went through 2 others before that. They didn't last very long.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Okay.
So the person, button up your systems, your processes, I would think, at 375.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to do that for sure. That's like our focus now.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we
Even
need to
though it
dial
seems
in our
like y'all got a lot of that down, so I don't know for sure, but yeah, one person, you've got one admin, that person ought to be able to kill it especially because you're offering FERT, you're offering mowing. They have to have FERT, or they have to have FERT to get mowing. Like, these are things that should actually make it easier on your administrative team because you've got a higher quality of client. All of those things should actually make it easier.
Yeah.
You should be able to
Okay.
really get a lot more. But how long has that person been with you?
About a year, over a year now.
Almost 2
2
years. Almost 2 years. Yeah, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like she came from the banking industry.
Oh, then
and
she knows.
She's on it.
But
She is.
I remember Jody, our office manager, telling me one time, and I thought, no. She's probably got there's some truth to it. It takes 6 months to a year to learn all the ins and outs. Man, I mean, service autopilot's it's got its problems. So y'all use service autopilot, right? Or have you shifted?
We the new locations on Copilot, and then
So you're
we're on
testing
service-
Copilot.
We're on both.
Service autopilot's extensive. It takes a lot to learn. And so, that's what Jody meant, I think, by saying it takes 6 months to a year is you don't really get into your rhythm for quite some time in this kind of work.
Yeah.
Administrative work also is very subjective, and this industry lends itself to, it needs to be people that want fast. They want things to move fast. You look at some admin jobs, it's like you're playing on Facebook half of your job, and that's okay because the phone only rings ever so often and email only comes in ever so often. Some admin jobs are like that. That's not this world. The world of home service administrative support is go, 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 go. Dinner time, take care of the kids, and in at least in my opinion, in certain times of the year, not all year, 9 p.m., back on it. Go, 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 go. And that's the other thing. We do salary administrative, and we tell them it's 45 to 55 hours a week, and it's up to 65 in the spring. And that's also why it's hybrid and historically even remote. So there's a give and take.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
when it comes to administrative team members, I don't stick to hourly and I don't stick to 40 hours because the client's demands are far more than a 40-hour work week. And it doesn't matter how you swing it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Clocking out at 5 p.m. and then coming in the spring at 7 a.m., even if you have 5 admins, people are emailing you all night.
Right.
And so coming into especially in the springtime, I've never liked the idea of the administrative clock in at 7 or 8 a.m., clock out at 5 p.m., don't do a single thing until the next morning. I want a culture that's on it.
Yeah. Awesome.
And we probably pay decently well to get that in comparison.
Okay. Yeah, I think we just need to button up our systems a little bit better, and I think we'll be good.
Final, I know we've been on for a minute. Oh, wow. This has been awesome, though.
Absolutely.
I apologize if I've done too much talking here. It's what I do sometimes, especially when I get a triple shot. But any wrap-up questions, thoughts?
I think that was probably one of the biggest ones. The other thing is for your administration with the office. So like with us starting a second location and having kind of like a command center per se.
Yeah.
How do you handle that with like different, like for you with Scoop Soldiers, you have different businesses really.
Yes.
Are you just like billing them separate? How are you tracking the admin time, the tasks, the activities? For us, I don't think I want to separate it completely to
I
where it's
wouldn't.
like one admin on that location, one on this location. So they're both going to be taking calls from different locations and needing to be able to do both at
Yeah.
both sides. Like, how do you?
There's
how
a
do you
few
track
ways that come to mind. Sorry for the dogs. They're having some fun. They're getting frustrated probably because they're locked up. But there's actually a lot. There's more than there's a lot of right ways to do it. There's also probably some wrong ways to do it. What comes to mind for me. So first off, I'll explain what we do. Scoop Soldiers has its own command center. The client, what we call them over on that side is Scoop account managers, SAM team members, Scoop account managers. You've got Scoop account managers handling Scoop Soldiers 13 to 15,000 clients. You've got Chorby's client account managers or Chorby account manager, CAM, separate from that. These are two separate businesses. They don't even know each other in a lot of cases. Now, they're about to get to know each other a little better because they're about to be in a hybrid setting, 15 to 30 hours a week in an office. So they're going to get to know each other a little more. That's literally a change we're going through as we speak.
That's pretty cool.
And so, but it's two separate structures, systems and processes. Scoop Soldiers is its own business. It's its own service autopilots. Now at Scoop Soldiers, it's 15 or 16 service autopilot instances because we have 15 franchisees plus our corporate. So that command center is having to bounce in and out of instances. It's very clunky. Gotta love service autopilot. But that's how that's operated. And then separate from that, we've got Chorby handling Chorby's service autopilot instance and all of Chorby's 7,000 or so clients. Our franchisee at Chorby shares that Scoop or those CAM team members, and they're separate. But, and this is what might help you, they're separate. They don't really know each other. They don't work on the same team. They don't really cross. Now the leadership of that, well, there's one person, my chief of staff, she manages both teams. Am I making sense so far? I apologize if
No, you are. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, one last piece to that is, like, for instance, our executive team, our media team, they work at both Chorby and at Scoop Soldiers. Our executive team, my VP of Ops, my Chief of Staff, my VP of Communications in Ben, our media team, they work at both companies. So how do we do that? We have White Picket Team Management. White Picket Team Management, think of it as a parent company. All of the employees work at White Picket Team Management. They clock hours that some of them, like SAM team members, Scoop account managers, they just clock in, clock out, just like you would anybody else. So you can kind of track what they're doing because they're remote, but they work at White Picket Team Management. And there's a management agreement between White Picket Team Management and Scoop Soldiers, right? And so they work at White Picket. And so the executive team, unlike the people that are solely working at Scoop Soldiers or the people that are solely working at Chorby, they work at White Picket, but they don't have to clock hours at one or the other because they're representing Chorby and Scoop Soldiers every day, all day. They're not crossing.
Yeah.
Our executive team members, like Ben, or our media team members, like the team that's here, they're actually literally clocked into Scoop Soldiers on Clockify. If they're working Scoop Soldiers, they're clocked in on Clockify if they're working Chorby. They work at White Picket, but White Picket in my accountant is literally billing one company over the other for the time spent of our executive team or our media team. So what you would need, again, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I wouldn't say this is exactly the way you do it, but maybe you have a separate entity. And that separate entity is the payroll entity. And it's got all of your team members in that entity. And that entity, through management agreements or contracts, that entity, your admin clocks in when they're working branch 1, clocks in when they're working branch 2. It's a bit of a mess at times. It's clunky. It requires additional overhead. It is not all great. It's not all perfect. Our White Picket, what I've had to do this last year is really start looking at its overhead costs because they just inch up every year. And it becomes basically like a micro version of what you hear about called the administrative state, so to speak. It becomes a bureaucracy, even as small as we are. We're not hundreds of millions. We're about 25 million is what we're operating in total under the white picket in multiple different brands. We're not even that big, but if you're not careful, the systems you over system and process yourself to death, and it takes so much time that it becomes counterproductive.
Right.
And so be careful in that. We're still navigating that ourselves. But to answer your question, we've got a parent company, so to speak, that everybody works, and it allows for that fluidity. It also allows us to streamline our HR. So when you have 10 locations, you're not going to want to have an HR for every location.
Right.
You're going to want to have an HR overarching over all of those locations. And so the only way you're probably going to have that is some sort of a version. There's lots of different ways to do it, but some version of a parent company.
Yeah.
Again, though, be careful in that. Speaking to myself here, if you would literally ask me how many LLCs I own, I couldn't even actually tell you exactly. It just depends. But be careful in that, because you can create a monster, and it can become more expensive than it's worth. We haven't gotten there yet, but it could have gotten there. I could see it getting there.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know my answers are somewhat long-winded. So
No, that's good. So it makes sense. You're tracking both times, and then they're billing white picket fence.
That's right.
Based on the time or whatever.
Exactly. But again, I have a really good accountant, but he's in-house and he's not cheap. It's worth it, especially for what we're doing in the grand scheme and all these different brands. But that's part of the strategy of White Picket, is next year to go out and create revenue for itself through accounting services, through consulting services. That's the goal of White Picket. It's a major project that Ben's working on. In a lot
accounting services.
Yeah. in a lot of ways, that's something I've wanted to do with White Picket since its inception back in 2019. At the same time, part of why we're moving forward with that now is because White Picket's evolving, and we're shifting a little bit of the strategy of how we've always had all employees at White Picket. We're somewhat shifting that strategy a little bit.
Interesting.
Isn't it so fun and cool to have all those dreams and visions that you have like finally coming to fruition? And
It is fun, but I do have to stop for a second, because I'm barely, like, my vision for Chorby. I was playing with numbers. I like to tinker. I used to like to tinker with spreadsheets. Nowadays, I don't have the attention span to play with spreadsheets, so I tend to delegate that. But nowadays I just daydream. But I was playing with this. So Chorby is a $7 million business. To achieve what I actually want for Chorby, we're not even 1% of the way there. So, like, on one hand, yes, I love the process. I do believe in what people, and I can totally understand what people say you're never gonna like arrive. Like, if you think in your head you've got like, okay, once I get here, then I'm gonna be successful, or then I'm gonna be happy, or then I will have made it. Like, if you're setting yourself up for failure by looking at it like that. It is about the journey. It's about and I have to remind myself that quite frequently, because I'm usually not very satisfied with where I'm at. I usually want to be 10 steps further along. But I have to routinely remind myself that it's the journey, and you're never, ever, ever done until you're done. But you're never done. And so that's my opinion on that, is that, like, yes, I love it, but at the same time, no, it's never enough.
Yeah.
It's never enough. I'm just getting started.
we actually recently had this conversation.
Yeah.
Just getting started. And I'll say that when we're 100 million, I'll say the same thing, just getting started. When we hit 1 billion, just getting started.
Yeah.
You know, 1 billion will be about 1,000 franchisees, ballpark. Totally guessing, but ballpark. I can't even comprehend, frankly, $1 billion if you really want to know the truth. But from the extent that I can, it'll be 1,000 franchisees or so. I'll just be getting started. I need 5,000 to 10,000 franchisees.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
Keep dreaming.
yeah, again, you know, everybody says it. The motivational people say it in the books and in the keynotes and such, but everybody says it, you know, you can't dream big enough. I've always thought that is like challenge accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a really good book called The Magic of Thinking Big.
Love that book. Changed my life.
In my-
One of the, I'm sorry to take that over. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's good. Like in the beginning of my entrepreneurial career, like a mentor gave it to me. It was like, hey, you need to read this. And it's funny, like, how many people don't think outside the box
Yeah.
in today's society. And so
You, She's trying to get out. You hit, the reason I jumped on that so quickly is you literally hit on the first book I ever read voluntarily from a mentor who gave it to me when I was 17, and it was The Magic of Thinking Big. And this is before audio. Now it's all audiobooks for me. I haven't read. These are for show. I've read the audio version of those, but I'm all audio. But no, the very first book I ever read when I was 17, outside of school, was The Magic of Thinking Big. It was a mentor that gave it to me, and it absolutely changed. It was that first seed, that first cornerstone of completely setting the direction for my life.
Yeah.
So sorry, I jumped on that as soon as you said that. We definitely have a relatability there.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
love that book.
Phenomenal book.
We had our team read that book. What was it? Year and a half ago? We do a quarterly book review with the whole team. So salary team members, office team members, they're required to be on the book review. I believe that they're required to read the book. I believe there's a subconscious, even if you're not into it, there's something subconscious about that sort of thing. Everybody's encouraged to be on it though, and we pay them to be on it. If you're if you're hourly team member, we'll gladly pay you for the 30-minute quarterly book review. We encourage you to listen to it. We always tell the guys in the trucks that you've got a university in your truck through YouTube and through your audio.
Yeah.
Use it. And we encourage, if nothing else, one book every 3 months. And it's usually something like Magic of Thinking Big, or 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, or 5 Levels of Leadership.
Yeah.
Big believer in those sorts of books.
No, ask them how people can find them.
Do what?
Ask.
Oh, thank you, Brent.
Wrap everything up.
Still learning this stuff. How can people find you guys? And wrapping up, how can people find you guys and what y'all are doing and follow y'all's journey?
Absolutely. Yeah. Great question. So we have a YouTube channel out there. It's Will Kelly, at the Will Kelly on YouTube. I put out a lot of good content for people that are wanting to grow their business and things like that. I'm very active in the comments if people have questions, or they can email us directly at media@militarylawncuts.com. They could book right now. We're doing a free, literally you can jump on a call with us, 30 minutes. We can go over any questions that somebody have just getting started. I mean, obviously we just opened our second location, so we have some value to give anybody on that journey. Doing it completely for free, that will change next year because it's very time consuming.
Yes.
Of doing it for free, but we'll kind of do similar to like what Mike's doing with a coaching call, paid coaching call.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, now's the time to
Awesome.
definitely do it. So.
Well, thank you all for coming on the Pet Waste Millionaire podcast, and it's been a pleasure being on yours. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, no, thank you all.
Thank you for having
It's
us.
been a pleasure getting to know you both, and Will the last couple of years, and Larissa yourself just the last few months as we've met.
I
So,
finally got to meet you at the summit.
yes.
Yeah.
So no,
Yep.
it's a pleasure,
Yeah.
and thank you guys for coming. Thanks
Thank
for coming
you.
out.
Thank you for hosting. It's a great place. This is a great office.
Yes, this is a dream. You asked about dream. This was a dream.
Yep.
And so yes, it is part of the journey, no doubt.
Yeah.
Never done.
Never done.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yes.